Britney Spears' story begins in the small, quiet town of Kentwood, Louisiana, where a little girl with a big voice refused to fit inside the boundaries life placed around her, where dreams were too big for the place she was born into, and where a young girl, whose heart beat louder than the limits of her surroundings, decided that someday, somehow, the world would know her name. Britney, born on December 2, 1981, loved to sing long before she could fully understand the power of her own voice, and even as a child, people around her felt that she carried a different kind of fire, one that didn't dim, one that didn't bend, one that promised something extraordinary. While most kids played casually, Britney practiced for hours. While others doubted themselves, she walked into talent shows with fearless confidence. While other children waited for permission, Britney created her own stage, her own rhythm, her own destiny. Her mother, Lynn Spears, saw that spark and pushed her toward opportunities bigger than Louisiana's borders. At age 8, Britney auditioned for the Mickey Mouse Club, and although she was told she was too young, the casting directors immediately knew she was a star in the making. They connected her to an agent in New York, and soon Britney and her mother were traveling across states, sacrificing comfort, stability, and familiarity for the chance to chase something greater. Britney trained in dance, voice, and acting with a dedication far beyond her years. Living in a tiny apartment with her mom, sharing hopes and fears like teammates on a mission, when she was finally old enough, Britney was cast in the Mickey Mouse Club alongside future stars like Justin Timberlake, Christina Aguilera, and Ryan Gosling. This wasn't luck, this was destiny beginning to unfold. Even among the brightest young talents, Britney stood out. She had an effortless presence, a charm that pulled cameras toward her, a smile that lit up the screen, and a work ethic that astonished everyone. But after the show ended, Britney returned to Louisiana, unsure of what would come next. The world had given her a taste of the spotlight, then pushed her back into normal life. She went to school, attended classes, and tried to blend in, but she was never meant to be ordinary. One day, she recorded a demo tape, just a simple demo meant to show her voice, and it ended up in the hands of executives at Jive Records. The moment they heard her sing, everything changed. They saw in her what millions around the world would soon see, a once-in-a-generation performer. Jive signed her immediately, and Britney, just a teenager, began working with top producers, shaping her first album. She trained relentlessly, danced until her feet hurt, sang until her voice cracked, and dreamed until her dreams became plans. She didn't want to be a star. She wanted to be the star. And soon, she would be. Then came the moment that changed pop culture forever. In 1998, Britney released Baby One More Time, and the world stood still. The music video, with the iconic schoolgirl outfit, the confident hair flip, the unforgettable choreography, became an instant phenomenon. Britney didn't just debut. She exploded. She wasn't manufactured or accidental. She was magnetic, powerful, and unlike anyone the world had ever seen. In just a few months, she went from an unknown teen to the biggest pop star on the planet. The song hit #1 in over 20 countries. Her album broke records. Her performances were electric. She became the face of a new era, an era she helped create. But behind the shining lights, Britney was still just a young girl learning to navigate a world that demanded perfection. Fame arrived like a tidal wave, massive, unstoppable, and overwhelming. Paparazzi followed her everywhere. Reporters asked invasive questions. Critics analyzed her every move. Yet Britney stayed poised, kind, hardworking, and focused. She gave the world everything she had, hit after hit, performance after performance, dance routine after dance routine. While others doubted her, she proved again and again that she wasn't a trend, she was a force of nature. Her second album, Oops, I Did It Again, shattered even more records. Her tour sold out globally. Girls wanted to be her. Boys wanted to meet her. The industry wanted to match her, but no one could. Britney wasn't just a pop star. She was a cultural phenomenon. But at the height of her fame, as millions screamed her name, Britney began feeling the weight of a world that consumed her nonstop. The pressure was inhuman. Every smile had to be perfect. Every interview had to be flawless. Every mistake became front-page news. The media built her up, then began tearing her apart. And yet, through the chaos, Britney kept performing, kept creating, kept giving. She worked harder than anyone, even as her personal life became a carnival for tabloids. She wasn't just fighting for success. She was fighting for herself. But even then, Britney shined. Her legacy grew. Her influence expanded. Her voice remained strong. And even though storms were coming, Britney Spears had already proven she was no ordinary artist. She was resilience wrapped in glitter, power hidden beneath vulnerability, strength disguised as a smile. She didn't just rise to fame, she transformed the entire sound of pop music. Her story had only begun, and the world had no idea how much more she would overcome. Britney's story, as it unfolded across decades, became more than a narrative of fame. It evolved into a monumental reflection of human resilience, the kind that transforms ordinary people into legends and turns difficult chapters into powerful lessons etched into global memory. And as she moved through life with the weight of the world on her shoulders, she discovered that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it trembles, sometimes it cries, sometimes it hides behind trembling smiles and tired eyes, but still keeps going, and that quiet persistence became the true engine of her legacy. From the very beginning, she was a star born with a fire that refused to be dimmed. A little girl from Kentwood, Louisiana, who sang with the kind of purity that made even strangers dream. And as she stepped into the spotlight, her voice became the soundtrack of an era, shaping culture, redefining pop, and inspiring millions who saw pieces of themselves in her journey. She was more than the glitz, the choreography, the iconic costumes. She was a reminder that greatness often begins in the most ordinary places, with a child who dares to believe that her voice matters. But fame is never gentle. It is a storm that tests even the brightest souls. Britney faced a world that demanded perfection, a world fascinated with her innocence yet hungry for her downfall. And every time the media tried to twist her story into tragedy, she quietly rewrote it into triumph. The cameras followed her everywhere, capturing moments meant to break her, magnifying her most vulnerable hours, and turning her personal battles into global gossip. Yet through all of it, she carried a heart that refused to darken. She learned the cruel side of the industry, the pressure, the loss of privacy, the expectations that suffocate, the betrayals from those she trusted. But she also learned that real power is not in controlling the narrative. It's in surviving it with your soul still intact. And that's what Britney did. She survived. She endured heartbreaks that played out on television screens, navigated an emotional hurricane while millions judged from afar, and faced moments that would have destroyed most people. But instead of collapsing, she gathered whatever strength she had left and held it close like a shield made from her own courage. Through every whispered rumor, every intrusive headline, every moment when the world seemed determined to misunderstand her, she kept moving, kept breathing, kept fighting. Even when she had no audience cheering her on, she learned that sometimes you stand alone not because you are weak, but because you are preparing to rise into a version of yourself that cannot be shaken. And rise she did not once, but again and again, like a phoenix burning through the ashes of her past. Her music became her sanctuary, the one place where she could tell her truth without filters, without judgment, without fear, and every song she released carried pieces of her journey, her joy, her pain, her hope, her longing for freedom, and millions felt it because it was real. She gave the world vulnerability wrapped in rhythm, emotion disguised as pop, brilliance, strength hidden beneath melodies that made people dance even as her heart was breaking. But even in the darkest years, when control slipped from her hands and decisions were taken from her, Britney's inner flame never went out. It flickered, it dimmed, it trembled, but it never died. That flame became a symbol not just for her fans but for anyone who has ever felt trapped, voiceless, or misunderstood. The world watched as she fought battles most people couldn't imagine, battles not of fame but of freedom, of identity, of reclaiming the right to her own life. And even in silence, she spoke louder than anyone else. Her story transformed from a celebrity narrative into a global movement, as millions rose to support her, not just as fans but as humans who understood that pain should never be entertainment and suffering should never be spectacle. The world finally began to see Britney not as a headline, not as a product, not as a symbol of fame, but as a woman with a heart too soft for the world that tried to harden her. A woman who deserved peace after years of pressure. A woman who had given the world so much yet asked for so little. And when she finally reclaimed her voice, when she finally stood up and spoke her truth with courage that echoed across nations, she didn't just free herself, she became a beacon of hope for anyone who has ever felt powerless. She reminded the world that no matter how long the night lasts, dawn always comes, and sometimes it arrives because you choose to rise even when everything inside you is tired. Britney Spears became more than pop royalty. She became a symbol of rebirth, a reminder that healing is messy but possible, that losing yourself doesn't mean you're gone forever, And that reclaiming your life is one of the most powerful victories a person can ever achieve. And as her story continues with all its scars, all its triumphs, all its quiet moments of rebuilding, she stands as living proof that resilience is the real definition of success. Not awards, not chart numbers, not global recognition, but the ability to rise after being torn apart. The courage to rebuild when the world watches. The strength to love yourself after years of being judged. Her journey teaches that beauty is not in perfection, but in persistence, that power is born from vulnerability, and that every person, no matter how famous or forgotten, deserves the right to write their own story. Britney's legacy is not just her music, though her hits shaped generations. It is her spirit, her refusal to surrender, her quiet tenacity that continues to inspire millions across the world. She showed that even when life pushes you to the edge, you can learn to fly. Even when people misunderstand you, you can still find your voice, and even when the world thinks your story is over, you can write a comeback so powerful that it becomes history. And so, with every breath she takes, every step she walks forward, every choice she finally gets to make for herself, Britney Spears continues to shine, not because fame demands it, not because the world watches, but because she has earned her light through battles most people will never see. Her story is still unfolding, still growing, still inspiring, and as long as she chooses to rise, her light will guide countless others who are still searching for their own strength in the dark. Britney's journey is the ultimate reminder that no matter how heavy the past is, the future always holds a chance for freedom, for joy, for healing, and for a life lived on your own terms, and that is the most powerful victory of all.